Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ross Jaffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content and hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The last time I talked about the UConn Huskies is when Terrace Reed, the former Michigan center, announced that he was transferring to UConn. And when I made that video, I said I was a little bit concerned about UConn's roster for next season because I didn't think they were going to have enough returning talent, plus the players that Dan Hurley was bringing in, to possibly be able to repeat in college basketball and be the first team since the UCLA Bruins to do it. They've won back-to-back national titles, but UConn's losing a lot of talent from this past season's team. But in the last few days, Dan Hurley has been at work, and he has brought in two massive players into the program for next season, with Liam McNeely, the former five-star commit to the Indiana Hoosiers, announcing that he is committed to the UConn Huskies over the Kansas Jayhawks. And now they just landed a massive transfer portal addition with Aidan Mahaney, the former St. Mary's guard. I'm going to go over how massive of an addition Aidan Mahaney will be for UConn next season and whether I believe that the Huskies will have a shot to three-peat next season in college basketball. Now, Dan Hurley, we know he is a meticulous head coach. He wants to bring in the players that he feels are going to best fit on his team and his system, and he's been doing a fantastic job of it the last couple years. Every single player on the team has a role, even the guys off the bench, and it is made for a fantastic basketball team that is spectacular to watch. But this season, UConn has a lot of questions coming up because they are losing Donovan Clingan from this past year's team to the NBA draft. They're 7'2" center. They are losing Stephon Castle as well, their five-star recruit from the 2023 class. He did a great job in the NCAA tournament and was one of the best freshmen in college basketball all of last season, especially once he got healthy. But he's off to the NBA as well. And then UConn's losing two of their backcourt stars in Tristan Newton, the former ECU transfer, and Cam Spencer, who was the former Rutgers transfer. He was like the glue that held that entire team together. He was a fantastic shooter, and he did all the small things that don't show up on the stat sheet, even though Tristan Newton got more of the headlines. But it was just a fantastic basketball team that UConn had. And not everybody is gone from this past season's team, but UConn definitely was going to have to bring in some more talent if they're going to have a shot to be a great team again next season. And UConn, they just got a steal in Aidan Mahaney because it looked like he was going to be going to the Kentucky Wildcats. A lot of Kentucky fans thought it was a done deal that Aidan Mahaney was going to end up suiting up for Big Blue Nation next season, but that's not the case because Aidan Mahaney, he's got different aspirations. He wants to win a national title. And Joe Tipton tweeted out that St. Mary's transfer guard Aidan Mahaney is committed to UConn. He also considered Kentucky, Creighton, and Virginia. And the 6'3" guard that was on the All West Coast Conference first team this past season averaged 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists per game this past season. And it's a massive loss for St. Mary's and Randy Bennett. If this was a few years ago, I would have been very shocked that Aidan Mahaney left St. Mary's, but we now live in the transfer portal era where it just makes sense for guys to be like, you know what, I've had a lot of success at this smaller school for a couple years. I want to go to a bigger school where I'm going to make more NIL money and have a shot to win a national title. And that's what Aidan Mahaney is doing here with this move, because he still would have had a lot of success at St. Mary's next season, but he never would have been able to have a shot to win a national title. Plus, it could help his NBA draft stock in the future if he can have a lot of success at a program like UConn, who's going to have a lot more eyeballs on them. And this is just the day and age that we live in now in college basketball. If you're a good player and you don't know if you're going to be able to start right away at a bigger school, go to a school like St. Mary's, go to a school like Tulane, and then work your way up to a bigger school after a couple of years of playing really good basketball. Now, you have to play really well at that smaller school or a bigger school isn't going to want you. But Aidan Mahaney is definitely a really good player. I thought he had NBA potential after his freshman year at St. Mary's, but he decided to come back for another season at the Gales. And he kind of had around the same type of season in his sophomore year. He didn't really improve all that much because if you look at his stats, he averaged 13.9 points per game in both his freshman and his sophomore year. So he was dead on the same. And his rebounds and assists went up just a little bit, but he also played a few more minutes per game as well. So it's not really that significant. But his three-point shooting and his free throw shooting is what makes him such a good player because his field goal percentage overall is kind of low at only 38%. He is definitely a streaky shooter as well. Sometimes he can go cold, but when he's on, he's one of the best shooters in college basketball, and he shot 81% at the line this past season. So his shooting splits are not as good as Cam Spencer's this past year for UConn, but I do believe Aidan Mahaney's going to have a similar role to a guy like Cam Spencer. He's going to be the three-point sniper on the team, and he's also going to be a guy that doesn't make too many mistakes because Aidan Mahaney, he is not very turnover prone. But when you look at the fact that Aidan Mahaney is not the only player that Dan Hurley has added in the last couple of days, the fact they got Liam McNeely, who was committed to Indiana, to commit to the UConn Huskies is massive massive as well because he was one of the last top uncommitted players in the class of 2024. It's always key to look out for those decommitments because if you still had a lot of roster spots available, you were kind of out of luck because all of these high school players, they were already going to be committed to a college basketball program, and most of the time players would not decommit, but it's becoming more and more common. A lot of programs have added really great players in the last couple weeks just through the high school ranks from players that decommitted from another school. So it's tough for the other school that recruited that player really hard, and then that guy doesn't end up going to that school. But Indiana, who Liam McNeely decommitted from, they seem to be doing pretty well right now. They've landed a fantastic transfer portal haul, and Kansas as well was looking at Liam McNeely, and they've got a loaded roster for next season. So it's no big deal for those schools not to have Liam McNeely, but UConn definitely needed Liam McNeely because they had Stephon Castle this past season, and Dan Hurley usually likes to have at least one or two really talented freshmen coming into the program every year, and Liam McNeely definitely fits that bill because he's a great shooter. He's not the best athletically, but still with his three-point shooting and the fact that he does have a high IQ in basketball, I think he's going to be a great player next season for the UConn Huskies. And like I already mentioned with Aidan Mahaney not going to Kentucky, that's massive as well. And the reason why he didn't go to Kentucky is really key because Aidan Mahaney says, I chose UConn because I want to compete for national championships. UConn is a place that keeps the main thing the main thing. The coaching staff has proven themselves to be the best in the country the last 2 years. Offensively, I'll be in a different system that should allow my game to grow even more. And defensively, I'll be challenged to become the best I can be. Coach Hurley will push me to be the best player I can be, and I can't wait to pick his brain and the rest of the staff. I chose UConn to be pushed to be a part of something bigger than myself, to compete for a national championship, and to become a pro. And that kind of checks all the boxes because Dan Hurley, he's winning national championships right now. He's won back-to-back, and he's looking to try to find a way to make UConn be the first team to three-peat since UCLA. And Aidan Mahaney, he wants to be a future NBA player as well. And obviously, he didn't feel that he was going to really be able to improve all that much at St. Mary's, and he trusted Dan Hurley is going to be able to get him to the pros. And that's wild that Kentucky basketball, despite them being a better program than UConn, was not able to land Aidan Mahaney because of all the momentum that Dan Hurley has right now, with having the Huskies at the top of college basketball, winning these last two national titles, and Aidan Mahaney wants to grow and improve at a great program and have a lot of success and go off to the NBA. So that is definitely crazy right there. And with Aidan Mahaney and Liam McNeely going to UConn, it's definitely going to improve the Huskies' chances of being a team that could compete for a national title again. Even though they're losing Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, and Donovan Clingan and Stephon Castle, Alex Caravan's key as well. If he returns to the UConn Huskies from the NBA draft because he's testing the waters, but he's a projected second-round pick, so he could come back. If he returns, if you have Alex Caravan and Liam McNeely both on UConn being able to shoot threes on the wings, that's going to make them a very dangerous team. And then Aidan Mahaney in the backcourt as well. And then the fact they brought in Terrace Reed through the portal, even though he's not Donovan Clingan, he'll be able to pair with Samson Johnson down low, who's a solid big. And Hassan Jara, he's going to be back as well, and Solomon Ball. So UConn's building a really dangerous roster for next season yet again. And they got a couple other talented freshmen coming in as well, in Ahmad Noel and Isaiah Abraham. So I think that Dan Hurley, he's about got this roster square. He's got to find out what Alex Caravan's going to do, and he's probably going to have to look to see if he can find maybe another backup portal player as well to be able to have come off the bench, because Dan Hurley, he loves to have a lot of bench depth because that helps you win in college basketball. You need great players, but the Huskies, they haven't really had like a true bona fide star the last few years. There hasn't really been one guy on their program like a Zach Edey that's scoring like 25 of their points. The leading scorer this past season for UConn was Tristan Newton, who averaged around 15 points per game. And the way UConn's roster is being built for next season, it looks like it's going to be more of the same, with all these players having roles, and they're all going to help the Huskies try to achieve their ultimate goal of being able to win a third national title in a row. But Aidan Mahaney's a massive addition for UConn. Liam McNeely is as well. And I think that Dan Hurley is really close to building UConn's roster up yet again to a point where they'll have a shot to three-peat. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was the past two seasons, but with the recent additions UConn has made, their chances of being able to three-peat are a lot higher than they were a couple weeks ago. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below with the announcement that Aidan Mahaney is transferred to the UConn Huskies, whether you believe that now UConn is really close to having a good enough roster yet again to be a team that possibly can win another national title, and what else you think that Dan Hurley is going to have to possibly do in the transfer portal to help fill up the rest of UConn's roster. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.